Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and welcome to the Insider Exclusive. Today, we are going inside the world of a sex crimes DA featuring Robin Sax, a deputy DA in Los Angeles. Stay tuned.
For a lot of people, and when I speak about the internet, I'm not just speaking of clearly, not just the educational value and purpose of it. We all know, I'm sure everyone has done a Google search today. We all there's wonderful advantages to the internet. There's wonderful resources that we would have never been able to have. Who are vulnerable? It's the same kids that are vulnerable in any other atmosphere are vulnerable online. It's the kids who are anxious, who are feeling lonely, who are alienated, the ones who are not supervised, the ones who've had troubles with family and friends. It's the same thing. What does the predator do that makes it different? The predator studies his prey. What predators do is what all kids want us to do. They spend the time to learn what kids like. They know. They know what the cool bands are. They know what's going on in the world, in the kid world.
Explore the market.
They do. They explore the market and they listen. They're not cooking dinner and saying, okay, honey, 1 second, I'll be right there, I'm coming. They're like, oh, you did that? Tell me about it.
I am very pleased to have with me today a great person, Robin Sax. She's the deputy DA in Los Angeles of the Sex Crimes Unit. And in case you haven't seen her on TV, let's go to some of those clips right now. You'll see her with Larry King on CNN, etc.
Robin, would you like to have these rules of prosecution? Bring them in, let them go, bring them out, bring them back.
Well, actually, we do here in Los Angeles and in the United States have the ability to release someone and bring them back if we...
You can rearrest every other day, right?
Well, we wouldn't like to make that our general practice. However, we can go back and rearrest someone when we've developed a case and feel that there's a strong enough case. We'd like to have it up front, though.
Neighbors got the news this afternoon that the little girl they used to see in their cul-de-sac in Spring had been tentatively identified as baby Grace. Pending positive DNA analysis, investigators believe baby Grace is Riley Ann Sawyer's.
I know as a district attorney, Robin, doesn't it bother you a little, and maybe the British system might make more sense in that you can't do what we just did here in Britain?
Well, I think that this is a huge human interest story that happens around the country all the time. There are children that are missing, murdered, and awful circumstances that happen in families. And I think that bringing this to the media's attention actually allows cases like this to be solved.
Robin, again, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
You're in the news again, aren't you?
I am.
Lincoln Middle School, which you can't talk about.
Correct.
Tell us what it's like to have your job every day. What's it like?
Being a sex crimes DA dealing with pedophiles is probably the most challenging, heartbreaking, dark experience anyone could have. But it is so fulfilling when you can see the joy of one victim confronting their perpetrator and seeing justice.
Why do you do this job?
Kids need a voice, and there are so many times that adults take advantage of kids, and then parents are too scared to listen, and I'm the one who's going to jam it down everybody's throats so that people start listening to what plights our kids are facing.
We have a situation in Santa Monica and also I think in South LA, correct?
Correct.
2 current cases in your office.
That's correct.
Apparently there were warnings beforehand. Nobody did anything about it. Does that make those administrators somewhat responsible too?
Well, I can't discuss the ongoing investigation part of it. However, if there were to be in a case information or evidence that suggested that people knew about abuse and didn't do anything, the officials that knew could be liable for failing to report.
What is the typical profile of a pedophile?
Pedophiles come in lots of different shapes and sizes and can be the person that seems like the nice guy that everyone loves, like the teacher.
Yes.
They can be the stranger. However, most often what I see in my cases is that the perpetrator is someone who has the ability to gain the trust of a kid and be able to groom them by having continued access to them.
They're in a position of authority, in other words.
Authority or trust, anything that gives access that will allow for repeated entry to that child's life time and time again.
Usually it takes a lot of guts, a lot of courage on that child's part to come forward and tell a person in authority. Do people call your office automatically after that or what?
Actually, what happens is just like any other crime, someone will report to law enforcement. Then, as a DA, I will review the report and look at it and see if there was a disclosure by a child and if we need to do an interview.
What is the best way to interview a child so you know that the child is telling the truth?
The first thing that we do is we just let the kid in a narrative form give a free-flowing account of what they said happened in their words. So
You go meet at their house.
no, we don't. Actually, I am part of a multi-disciplinary team, which means that there are members of law enforcement, Department of Children and Family Services, an advocate, sometimes medical personnel, and myself. The DA, myself, I conduct the actual interview. The other members of the team are watching the interview through a one-way mirror, which the kid knows about.
Yes.
And they are observing the behavior of the kids. They're watching the questions and making sure that we're not being suggestive or leading or any, we try to keep follow the techniques of forensic interviewing. And we conduct, as the DA, I conduct the interview with the child, hoping that they'll make whatever disclosures in a free form, but also, more importantly, give us clues to where we can find corroboration. We do not file charges unless there is something that corroborates the victim's disclosure. So then they'll tell us about perhaps clues to where there could be DNA, other victims, prior acts. And then once we have that corroboration, and only once we have that corroboration, are we able to file charges.
How does a parent today try to protect their child? What advice do you have to them?
Well, my first piece of advice is get internet savvy. Know YouTube, know MySpace, know Facebook, know those programs so you know what you're even worried about. I think there's this big worry and big fear of the unknown, and once you know how to navigate through and you know what kids have access to, you can then participate in having conversations where you are addressing what the real issues are.
You prosecute the crimes, you prosecute the criminals. What about the victims? How do you help the victims after they've been exposed to these terrible things?
Other than leading them into therapy, which I always, as a DA, think that it's advantageous, is to go the therapy route. But through the criminal prosecution process, I see that kids do amazingly well and feel amazingly empowered when they've confronted their victim and participate in the court process.
Robin, there's one last thing I want to talk about, and that's you on TV. I see you all over the place. We saw in the beginning of the show, etc. You are a great TV commentator, okay? Tell us what it's like to be on TV so often, talking about highly sensitive cases. What goes through your mind?
Well, one thing that's kind of out of my normal life is that I get to talk about other people's cases, which is great because it's really easy to commentate on the flaws in the system, the flaws in the court, the flaws in the lawyers when it's not your own case.
Do you want to hand out a phone number where people can call the DA's office if they have additional information to contact you?
You can call the district attorney's office at 213-974-1611.
And hand out your website again for people to get more information about how to protect their children and things to watch out for.
Kid Scene Investigation, that's like KSI, and it's KIDSCENE investigation.com.
Thank you very much for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Enjoyed having you on. I hope you come back
Likewise.
again.
I will.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for watching. You can get more information about our guest and the shows at www.insiderexclusive.tv. Thanks again.